So here we are, one with the abundant universe, courage. One with the abundant. So there is a spiritual reality. It is infinite intelligence. It is ever giving. It is all prosperity and all supply. Do you know about that? Yes, you do. Courage. To what extent are we deciding, acting, living, choosing, revealing it? Do you know about that? Yes. Well, here's the thing. Basic metaphysics is theory, and advanced metaphysics is practice. Practice. So that's what courage is when it comes to living with the abundant universe. And it's not always easy. You know, if we're not feeling that I am manifesting the truth that I know, that I am living out the abundance that I study, if we feel any sense of separation about that, we suffer. We'll feel that our spirit is squelched and the inspiration of the divine feels foggy. Our creativity will feel limited. We'll get overwhelmed with managing money and resources and supply. Feel like our time is wasted. We'll feel fearful. If we have stuff about money and supply and resource, and we don't, especially if we feel like I'm not living in congruence with what I know to be true, it's painful. And what I'm here to share with us today is that is happening not because we're bad metaphysicians or we didn't study hard enough, and not because there's a being in the sky that is trying to teach us a lesson or making sure that somebody else gets more than we do. The reason that we suffer and feel separate is because there's always more of the divine to be revealed, and that, in our human condition, is our practice. So we're beginning with a wonderful quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes. And what he says is, you and I are never limited by the principle of your being. Limitation is a result of a limited use of this principle. You can come to but one conclusion. There is something which honors your belief, not in a big way in one place and a little way in another. Rather, it honors your belief as you believe it. So there is an infinite something which honors our belief, not in a big way over here and a little way over there, but it honors our belief as we believe it. So this is a message that has a little bit of a call for being frank about how much we are truly living the abundance that we know. And I would say it's an opportunity for growth for all of us. So I am going to share with One with the Abundant Universe a story about the limitless, a windfall story. And then we will go deeper into the law of cause and effect and see how we can model the windfall and activate the law. And then I want to speak a little bit about the courage it takes to work with the dynamic of how we engage with the spiritual life. To what extent are we looking to proactively create something? To what extent are we trying to comfort ourselves by reacting well to things? And is there even something greater? So that is where we're headed. And we're going to begin with windfall. So we have an image here of an individual experiencing windfall. So windfall is like a big cha-ching of cash. You know, it's cash, money, big amounts that come to us in an unexpected way. So I'd like us all here in the sanctuary and all who are watching this message to practice the windfall mudra. Let's do it. Yeah, windfall. Okay. So I have a story, and the best stories are true. I have a story about a windfall with a minister from one of our Science of Mind Centers for Spiritual Living. And the good news about this true story is I know some of the details intimately, but I don't know some of the other details. So it gives us all a chance to really stretch our minds. And this minister, I texted with him yesterday, said, absolutely share the story. We're keeping it a little anonymized so that you can just imagine who it could possibly be. All right. So our Science of Mind teaching has had churches and centers for decades, but not thousands of years, decades, since the 20th century. And this particular spiritual center has a nice legacy of people giving and giving generously. And one of the things they've built into their giving and receiving is to encourage their community to create what's called legacy giving, so that an individual who practices the science of mind and loves a center and feels inspired and is a tither, they give a portion of their good, that when they pass, they will include the center in their legacy. And one of the things that was done at this center is another thing that's fairly common, is there's what's called a windfall clause for the senior minister, which says, should there be a big amount of giving received, that the minister gets a portion. And windfall clause is a really common thing in commercial organizations, in not-for-profits. If you've ever been in sales or business development or part of a team, you know that it's good to say, if we all do well, there's a bonus that comes to some of us. Would you like bonuses that come when we all do well? Of course we would, yes. Okay, so recently, somebody passed, and it was not, an individual who passed in the community was not the person you think was Fancy Pants Jones. So this was like a kind of a quiet person who it was a little bit of a surprise when they included in their estate a really big amount that was given to the center. Like, I want you all to just think like, oh, a big amount. So what that meant is a big amount's coming to the center, and a big amount is coming to our senior minister because of the windfall clause. And what happened is there was a little bit of back and forth with the estate to make sure that it was okay that the center was going to get this big amount. And during that time, our beloved senior minister, a teacher of prosperity, an individual who has walked through many challenges in their lives and, practiced the science of mind teaching, started to feel a little bit of doubt and nervousness, a little bit of a moment of, this is a lot. This is a lot that would come to me personally. Is this okay? Will someone in the community be upset? Should it really be this way? And as they were feeling some of this doubt, they had the desire to talk it over with someone. And they could have gone to a couple different people in the center, but they chose a member of the leadership council. And I think our minister chose wisely. So our beloved said, had a conversation, what, is this too much? Should we do something different? Is it okay for me to get this bonus? To what their colleague replied, oh yes, oh yes. We set this up because we believe in principle and we want to be in integrity, and absolutely this amount should come to you. And so, not long after, our minister receives a paper check, and it was of a large amount. And so the minister went to their financial institution to deposit the check and walks up to the teller window and hands this check over to the young man standing there, who says, I'm going to need another pair of eyes on this. Okay. And so the young man closes down the teller window and walks our minister into a private office. And while another pair of eyes are on the way, he says to her, may I ask, what is this check? What is it? And she says, it's a bonus check. And then he says, may I ask, what profession are you in that would warrant a bonus of this magnitude? And this has now become the only way I want to be interacted with in a financial institution, is I want people to ask, what profession are you in that would warrant a bonus or deposit of this magnitude? What profession are you in that would warrant a bonus of this magnitude? And of course, our beloved says, very proudly, I'm a minister. And I want us to practice that. I want you to just kind of turn to somebody here in the sanctuary or in your living room and ask them, what profession are you in that would warrant a bonus, a deposit of this magnitude? And then answer, I'm an artist. I'm an investment banker. I'm a teacher. I'm retired. Yeah? What if it was that there was no limit on principle and that our delight would be being in interaction with life at such high volumes of digits that people had to ask, that another pair of eyes was necessary? So use this to expand your limitless nature. It's always good to notice in a story or a parable, where do you see yourself? And what really caught my heart was that moment when the minister thinks, maybe this is too big, let me go check it out. And one of the things I love is, you know how this is, you can check stuff out, and sometimes you check it out with the person who's going to agree with your limitation, and sometimes you know enough, you go check it out with the person who's going to say, oh no, it's yours. So for your life, what is it that's going on with you, with money, resource, supply? It could be individual for you and your family. It could be something that's happening at the center. It could be our economic and governmental and global economy and justice and fairness. Where is it that you can expand your sense of what the limits are? Where could you have a windfall idea? Because you see, that possibility is ever present. And it's ever present for us to create a greater experience because of the law of cause and effect. So there's two major principles in the science of mind. Love, God is one, universe is whole, and it is love, and we are it. And I'm drawing the circle because it represents the eternal nature of life. And then the second principle is cause and effect, that life is created through the cause, the activity of spirit, operated upon by law, which creates experience, which creates effects. And so the thought of the light bulb becomes the light bulb. The consciousness creates experience. That's the second major principle of the science of mind. And I would say in my own life, if I was to say, where's my growing edge? Where do I need more courage? With abundance, with wholeness, with mortality, with peace of mind, with divine justice in this world. My growing edge is to be more courageous and responsible with how I am using the law of cause and effect. So the thing that I was reading all week was chapter 8 from the Science of Mind textbook, The Power of Thought. So some of you could, pretty much a third of the room, I could say, okay, 20 minutes on the law of cause and effect, go. And you would stand up and you could do it. We all could. So what I'm talking about is, to what extent am I really taking responsibility for the patterns of thinking that I am empowering and how life is creating through me? We are immersed in an infinite intelligence. So the idea that thought is creative begins with the idea that life is not just visible form with, problems and check deposits, that life is an invisible reality which is infinitely creative, and we are in it, we are of it, we are one with it. And that the way life responds to us is by corresponding or matching or reflecting back to us our consciousness and reproducing our consciousness in forms of experience. All thought is creative, and it is our dominant patterns of thinking that are most creative in our lives. So you will hear our beautiful ministers, I've heard Reverend Leslie say many times, We don't get what we want or think or say. We get who we are. Our dominant patterns of thinking are what create. And our dominant patterns of thinking, our consciousness, the sum total of our beliefs, include the content of the thought that moves through. And it's really the stuff that moves through that stays, that gets creative. So the things that move through that we respond to emotionally, the things that move through that we talk about with our friends, the things that we move through that we repeat, that we have an intense relationship with. So one of the reasons I even share that is just to disabuse us of the idea that there is thought police, that, you know, if something fleetingly goes through that is grubby or greedy or small or petty, there's no divine punishing us for that. Mostly it's like, are we awake to what is moving through, and then we get to choose what we anchor into. So I had an experience last week. Reverend Karen Lewis talked about gratitude, and she talked about the evolution of gratitude from being transactional in our abundance. It's good to have transactional gratitude, but then she really opened to the idea of gratitude in all things. Well, I had an abundance thought that came through that was very transactional. I was being asked to do a piece of work, and I kept being asked to do more and more, and my little Petty Pants Jones mind went to like how little I was getting for what I was doing. Now, I'm not proud to share that in front of the group here, but I just want to say, like, it fleeted through. And when the pettiness fleeted through, I thought, well, maybe I should bring something to sell to this thing so that I would get more. And here's what I know to be true. Is like, I saw that thought go through, and I went to, and I'm blessed to have a mate who is in this teaching, who's, you know, the guru of my pettiness. I went and I said, I just passed it by the big fella. I'm like, I'm having this thought. And he just was like, no. Okay, all right. It's good to have a friend or a beloved who's going to be like, and I got it immediately. I'm like, oh my God, that was so small thinking. And then I just clicked into what I do know to be true. There's one source, many channels. Let me go and be of service in this thing, and just, you know, get me behind me, small thought. And then later that day, out of the blue, another name for the divine, out of the blue, I received through PayPal an unexpected tithe from a student from years ago that was 100 times greater than the little thing I was going to sell. I mean, windfall, let's all windfall, yeah, we like windfall, yeah. But what I really caught in that is the courage piece is not, I never want to have a petty thought. I never want to have a fearful idea about abundance. I never want to feel angry about a financial betrayal. I never want to feel scared or overwhelmed. It's not so small. It's a greater decision that if the law of cause and effect is reproducing from my consciousness, then I want to have the responsibility to empower my consciousness with choice, with ideas of truth and abundance. And that's where spiritual practice and community come in. So one of the reasons that we come to a spiritual center, that we tune into the messages on an online campus, that we take 5 gifts for an abundant life, that we engage in partnership and service and meditation and prayer, that we do spiritual practices is for the purpose of, and Ernest Holmes would say, we start with the mechanical until it becomes transformational, is that we want to deliberately put into our minds thoughts that are in alignment with what the abundant truth is. And so that's why spiritual practice is the evolution of thought, so that pretty quickly, Petty Pants Jones forgets a small idea and remembers one source, many channels. So this is, as you always get at New Vision Center, the commercial for spiritual practice, right, is always coming in there. It's like, whoa, we love that, yes. So the point of spiritual practice is to enlarge our thinking. And I get it, that it's not always easy to take this like ultimate responsibility for the content of my consciousness. It means in many ways, well, it means doing probably three things. One is moving out of any sense of victimization around abundance, money, resource, and supply. And that is not easy, particularly if we've had personal or collective experiences of betrayal and lack, which we never minimize. However, what we know is that the past does not control what's possible for you, for any of us. So we let go of being a victim. We also have to grapple with how do we have an authentic experience of the circumstances of the world. So you don't have to be that tuned in to what's happening with our brothers and sisters, our fellows, our other human beings to know of the close to 8 billion of us, there will be, very, very many that go to sleep tonight without clean water, a safe place to sleep, without resources of any kind. And so just to how do we live with that if we're over here trying to get windfalls and empower our consciousness? How do we be of maximum benefit to those who are having a factual experience that we do not want to diminish? So that takes some courage. I will say one of the best ways to work with that is to be very sincerely aware that when you say a prayer of abundance, it matters to every being. When you participate in a drive for pajamas for foster kids here in the Valley, it makes a difference. Like everything that we do that is individual, we want to consciously dedicate it to people who others will be benefited because we are all connected. And the final thing that courage does is it calls us to be greater than we thought we would be. So I brought this wonderful quote. I think the poet's name is Karle Wilson Baker, who says, "Courage is fear that has said its prayers." And I love that definition of courage. So we can feel the fear of having to change to be more courageous. And sometimes that fear shows up like, I feel comfortable where I am, or there's what will people think of me if I get too big for my britches, or I start to get windfall checks. And that opening of what would it be to be courageous is really the question that I want to kind of leave you with as we think about how do I have courage in my abundant living in every way. And so this is one of the questions that I've really also been grappling with around abundance and around every other spiritual quality of being. And that is, are we just going for comfort? Like, there's a level of spiritual practice where we almost can escape from the bad and painful things by being comforted from the idea that there is something greater. God is more than this. Although I feel this pain, it's not the complete truth of me. I'm going to react spiritually to the things that happen to me. And there's something quite beautiful in that, right? It's like to be able to be in a place of conviction no matter what happens to us. But what I want to, you can kind of hear underneath, I've got a little question of this. When it comes to abundance, would that mean that we're being a little bit passive? And passive not in a way that abdicates the responsibility we have for really co-creating with the divine. So yes, at one level we want to be able to be comforted by spiritual principle with given what happens to us. And then the other, if the pendulum swings, we can think, well, I want to create my own windfall. Let me go, see what the percentage of bonus is at my place of work. Or is there a way that I can create something? I can get back the money from this investment, or I can try to force something to happen. And that's almost like a proactive to the manipulation end, where I want to try to control circumstances by the use of cause and effect. And there's an emptiness in that because, of course, what it's infused with is I don't have it now, so I have to go get it then. And I think that the answer, and this is what I would invite you into the courage of your contemplation, is not an in-between answer. I think it's a both and. I think really what we're doing is I am non-resistant to the circumstances around me, and I am in complete responsibility to how I am embodying the infinite intelligence and then revealing it by the choice of my thought and the direction of my consciousness into that which gets created. I choose. You see, we don't put the power into the law of cause and effect. We use it. Yeah, we use it. So I also want to kind of end with previewing that in the coming weeks, Reverend Leslie will speak about generosity and giving and love. And then Reverend Karen and Reverend Leslie will be in our stewardship for our New Vision Center. I want you all to know, of course, that the end of the story for our windfall minister is, what does everyone do when you get a big old windfall? You give thanks for the 100% and then tithe the 10% off the top. One of the things that's been most delightful to me about receiving big windfalls is the like, whoa, I can't wait to tithe. So that like, courage means, how am I going to put this infinite into action? So I believe in you. And I love that line from the Thrive. Don't you want to come too? I believe in you. I believe that together we thrive. So shall we thrive? Yes. All right, let's take this to prayer. So how good it is for us to have the courage of our abundant convictions. How grateful I am to feel, sense, and know that the good of God is all good. That this infinite presence, Mother, Father, Creator, is giving, revealing, expressing as me and as all. I recognize our natural oneness with the law of cause and effect, that our consciousness creates, and that the creation is beautiful because we create from infinite beauty, infinite love, infinite joy, peace, power, abundance, freedom, grace, truth. That reality is what we are, and therefore, as we create and live and claim and express, it is only God we can be, only good we can share, only abundance that we can participate in. And so in this state of recognizing our oneness with the divine, I speak a word this day. I claim and know that for everyone connected to the New Vision Center for Spiritual Living, that this is a moment of deepening in our courage, the courage to realize that our consciousness creates experience and to be in the development, expansion, and cultivation of a consciousness that must expand because life is limited. I accept for each and every one of us that windfall energy where our previous conceptions of what big and little are blown away by knowing we cannot outgive God and that the infinite is always ever present, revealing and expressing as us. And I accept that for everyone who has reached out for prayer, that prayers are answered with wholeness and love, right action and freedom, truth and justice, beauty, that God says yes in, through, and as us. And so this word is a blessing to all beings and all places, and it's an extension of abundance to all. And I give thanks for this. I am grateful that the good of God is revealed through the prayer. I am grateful that the law of mind says yes. I give thanks. The word is released, the prayer is complete, and together we say, and so it is.